We're back. Happy New Year.
2025.
Still here. Still going.
Whole new year.
Whole new year.
Whole new world.
If time means anything to you and how it passes. How humans recognize the passage of time.
It is a linear process.
Everything is linear. Nothing is abstract. Everything makes sense. Which is why we're here.
How quickly does time pass when we're doing the podcast?
I feel like the first 10 minutes, I'm always like, oh my God, why is my mouth moving? Why are words coming out? I can't believe anyone uses their one wild and precious life to hear my lips flap. And then by the end, I've usually eased into it a bit more.
Isn't it crazy how, depending on the circumstances, time passes at a different rate?
I feel like anyone who's ever done a workout on the treadmill has ruminated on this at one time or another.
Oh my God. I did 2-hour runs on the treadmill last week, and it was... Let's just say it takes a little while to reach that point of acceptance.
Do you know why the treadmill was invented?
It's a torture device.
Yeah, it was invented in Victorian England to torture people in debtors' prisons because they believed if you just like put debtors in prison, they would just loaf around and sit. And they were like, well, sitting in jail is way too relaxing. We've got to get these mofos running on treadmills. So whenever you are training on the treadmill, you are literally training on a Victorian torture device.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
which, I mean, if you... Vibes.
Yeah.
Feels right.
Feel too
you like the treadmill.
I don't mind it.
You're fine with
Yeah.
it. You watch movies on the treadmill.
I watch a little, cue up a movie.
Yeah.
Watch a little jazz. I don't know.
You watch jazz?
Yeah, like a good performance.
For like 2 hours?
There's a lot of good performances on
I
YouTube.
do watch like whenever I need, like whenever I'm hardcore in the debtor's prison side of things on the treadmill, I watch Charlie XCX's Boiler Room set on YouTube.
Oh my God, there's so much good Boiler Room.
Yeah, I really like Boiler Room sets.
there.
I feel like such a bro in
Do
the
you just
gym.
watch the people dancing?
I watch the people dancing, and I'm always doing it like next to some like straight up elderly people on the treadmills next to me. And they're always looking at me like, "What the hell?"
I see that they're in like Ibiza or something.
They're always in
tropical
Ibiza, so
place.
the outfits are pretty exciting.
No, but it's like snowing, and then I'm like, well, they're looks so good.
But I
there.
pretend I'm in Ibiza.
Yeah, pretty
with
much.
Charlie
I
XCX.
try to dissociate.
Yeah, I
completely
dissociate.
from what I'm doing.
Anyway,
All
treadmills,
right,
a good tool.
2025. What are we getting into? What are we getting into today?
Well, I actually wanted to ask you if you had any reflections on your 2024. Do you have any highlights, any lowlights, and anything that you want to improve on in 2025?
The highlights. Western States was a highlight.
Yeah, it's a bit, just in your
just a
first
little
try
highlight.
in the lottery, getting into the most competitive ultra on North American soil. Cool.
Sometimes, luck is on your side.
Yeah, and the cool thing is that since I was on your crew, I basically got to go also.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you got to run
I got to do
28
Western
miles
States
of
by
it.
proxy. That's right.
Yeah.
At the last minute, my
awesome.
6-mile pacing adventure turned into a 23-mile pacing adventure.
And that's why you're always well-trained, because you never know with me.
Exactly.
I could call an audible.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun. I think that was my highlight of the year. Yeah, I actually, I ran less miles this year than I had in the previous 2 years. So
How do you feel about that?
I feel fine. I mean, yeah, there's a small part of me that's like, oh, that's not improvement. That's not linear improvement. That's bad. Yeah. And, I mean, that's just kind of like what it's like to do a 100-miler at the end of June. Yeah. It took so much out of me. It took me all of July.
Because, usually you're doing more volume during the summer months, but since you were recovering, I feel like that I had a similar dynamic when I did Western States. I had a slightly lower volume year that year, but also, I mean, volume is one way of understanding training progress, but it's not the end-all, be-all. You can have a great, you came in top 20 at Western States with, XYZ volume, so... It is what it is.
But more is better. If there's one thing I learned in 2024, across the board, more is better.
That's not true, but it's also not untrue.
Okay, all right. Everyone
you
out
want
there...
to accumulate training volume. You don't want to, more isn't infinitely better, but, the correct amount is better.
Totally.
Which I know is a really annoying tip.
If this is your first time listening to the podcast, you might
I'm so
think
sorry. Also, welcome.
I subscribe to that mentality of more is better, but... obviously listeners know that I'm totally joking about that. I think it's good to actually have some
Longtime listeners know that TJ is just a bag of jokes and giggles.
Ha ha ha, the funniest.
He's the funny one in the family.
I think it's, I don't know, for the ego, you're like, I want that 4,000 mile year again or something. But
have you done a 4,000 mile year?
Yeah.
Oh,
last year.
I haven't yet.
Not this year. Not 2024. 2023 it was like 4,000, or it was like 3,968 or something. Like it was real close.
I'm at like 3,700 something.
I mean, it's a lot.
Which is not that close to 4,000.
It's all about how many hours, probably, realistically.
I mean, it's just, again, it's one measurement out of many. And, like, if volume was all that mattered, you know, you just show up to races and show your Strava and they would give you a prize. And that's not how anything works.
Yeah. Oh, gosh.
So decent volume year for you.
It was good.
Lower, but still a good year.
Good year, healthy year, mentally, physically. You know, some ups and downs, like here at the end with some of my stomach issues we talked about on the last episode. I learned a lot. You know, I really learned that, like, you have to take so seriously the recovery after 100 miler. Like, there are some athletes out there who can, likely because of their genetic makeup, they're not probably taking on as much muscle damage, and like they're not, like, their nervous system isn't as affected by these races as probably the majority of us. Mm-hmm. But it's good to make sure you don't, like, try to guide what you do in training after these races based on what some of these outliers are doing. You know, I think I really had to learn, like, you got to just, like, not do what your coach, like, was, like, my coach was just giving me stuff that was unreasonable to do and was causing me setbacks. And, you know, I was grateful to make a coaching change. That was a really difficult thing that I navigated this year. But it's just like, you've got to respect these distances. Yeah. And I think the more that I learn about how my body responds to these things, the more I can adjust my expectations and the better my experience is, and the more fun I have in this process, and the more sustainable it becomes. So those are the things that I've really been thinking about for 2024. And, you know, I really want to, like, get back to Western States. I think that would be...
Same girl.
Really, I wasn't, like, super stoked with my performance. Feel like I just kind of showed up flat, and I didn't hold myself to the standards that I talk about on this podcast so much. Like, the importance of having your vision and knowing your standards for how you want to perform. I let some external stuff before the race impact how I wanted to perform, and that's on me. I don't blame anybody for that except for myself. I didn't stay in my integrity, and, like, now I have unfinished business. I kind of want to go back and, like, race from the place that I raced, that race I just did from. What was that race that we just did?
The Spartan 50 miler 50K.
Yeah. That was, like, I embodied what I wanted to embody there, and I want to do that at a bigger race.
Yeah, it's always so hard with 100s because, I mean, the accumulated, like, central nervous system fatigue and the mental fatigue makes it so much harder to hold yourself accountable when you are just, like, out of your goddamn mind, tired. Oof. And that's the thing I find, like, so fun and compelling about 100s is, like, I love racing every step. I want every step to feel like a race for me.
Right.
And I think that was what you walked away from Western States feeling like you had at some points been more, you thought you were trying to be strategically conservative, but when you actually ran the race as you ran it, you were like, actually, I would change up my strategy and push harder earlier on.
Yeah. And I think, you know, we learn a lot about how we're, like, working on from the inside out. And, like, by slowing down, I appeased fears that I had around failing.
Not wanting to blow up.
Yeah, it was based on failure. You know, not wanting to blow up, not wanting to have to walk it in like I did at Leadville, not wanting to have a DNF, a stomach blow up. That was all fear. That was all future tense situations, stuff that I did not know was actually going to happen. Yes, there was some basis for those thoughts because of my experience at Leadville, but you have to race from a place of fearlessness. Yeah. Just kind of, like, letting it go, that free place. Yeah. Really present in the moment. That's why we create race standards. That's why we kind of have a formula for how we want to be out there. You're not always going to stick it. Sometimes you'll stick to those standards and you won't stick the landing. That's part of the process. Sometimes you will have the standards and you won't, you know, live up to what those standards are. You have to, like, just have to work on accepting that and doing better in the future. And I'm excited for 2025 because I'm going to have a lot of opportunities for that. What did you learn from the year?
Ooh. Well, I got second at Leadville, which was fun for me because that was the first 100-miler I ever attempted. It had a huge blow up there
when I was fearless DNF.
A very fearless DNF that year. Oh, to be 24 again.
Oh my gosh.
And unafraid. Take me back. Actually, no, because I was a dumbass, but I wish I could like run with like dumbass courage and then smartass strategery.
You can.
I can, and that's kind of where I'm going to now, is like running with like Taylor Swift, like speak now vibes, reputation era, like seriousness, and then like Midnight's era execution. So that's what I'm bringing into 2025, and it felt good to go back and do something that I had fucked up in a big way in the past and execute well and execute to my potential. I finished 3 minutes ahead of my projected A goal, nice. Which I was pumped for.
Wow.
And also tells me I need to set more aggressive A goals. So going to be working on that going into 2025. And you know, that was not even on a perfect day. That was on a growth day. So that makes me excited about what I can do on an even better day. And, you know, it just feels good to achieve a thing you knew you could achieve and that you wanted to achieve. And it just sort of felt like I was manifesting or like making real and tangible something I knew and believed I could do, but it only counts that you know it and believe it when you do it.
Yeah.
So that felt good, and I enjoyed that. Also had a really healthy year, you know, of running, had like a big career change. Have really been trying to seek more balance after a year of driving back and forth from Denver every week. That was not amazing for my mental and physical health.
Part of your life.
Yeah, dude. I mean, like I honestly, I feel like I got away with something because I was not. I feel so lucky that I didn't get like really hurt or really sick during that time period because I was doing. I mean, I'm not proud of this. I'm not saying this like girl boss, grind it out, girl keep. You know, like gaslight, gatekeep, woohoo. Like, that's not the takeaway here. I want to be good at things. I don't want to be like David Goggins at things and just like be a dick to myself. That's not the goal here. I want to actually be excellent, and being tired and grinding it out is not being excellent. And so
I feel like
I had to walk away from some stuff this year.
Recipe for a very unfulfilling life.
Yeah, and there was like definitely a big part of me that was like, well, I want to be on TV. This is what you have to do to be on TV. And like I sort of like had mission creep, and I was letting other people's ambitions control my life more than letting my own ambitions run the show. So 2024 was a lot about letting my own ambitions run the show more and starting my own podcast and my own media sort of wing with Microcosm, and working with people who are aligned with my values and ideas, like Coach Kylie, like you. And that has been really scary, but you know, in less than a year I was able to start a podcast and successfully take it to market and acquire sponsorship, so I'm really proud of that.
You have to be the driver of your own life. If
Correct.
You let life drive you, you're at the mercy of so much that you can't control, and that's
I mean
really
you're always
hard.
a bit at the mercy of things you can't control, but I was ceding a lot of my self-worth and ceding a lot of my dreams to other people, and that wasn't a good fit for me. But it was also scary and hard to walk away from. So really grateful to be where I am now. Not to say it was without tears or without stress, and just feel grateful for, you know, all the like my athletes on my roster who have like been with me for years and years and years, and like show me every day through their courage and showing up, and like the vulnerability that my athletes bring to their logs, talking about setbacks, talking about breakthroughs and successes. I think that whenever I'm sort of in the shit or in the struggle, I can always lean on lessons from my team, from my athletes to get through those tough moments.
I feel like the coaches kind of like, when we think about coaching in a very I don't know, like an old-fashioned sense, we think about like there's the athlete, and the athlete's job is to do what the coach says.
Right.
And like, sure, there's a component to that. Like a coach prescribes workouts. The like expectation that the coach has of the athlete is the athlete then will do the workout.
Right.
But the way that we work at like Microcosm is we have an ecosystem where everybody supports each other. And so the coach the way that I look at it is the coach does have that benefit of also seeing what the athlete's experiences are and using that to help motivate them when things are hard, because we all do that for each other. That's the point of having connection, community, and relationships.
Yeah, community. Like, it's reciprocal. And I think that that's something that I've always really, really valued about Microcosm and about the relationships I have with my athlete and with our co-coaches. So that's been a really transformative part of my year. And, you know, as a coach, I've really been focused on skilling up, getting a women's specific coaching certification, getting a strength certification, getting a nutrition coach certification, and just really embracing my exercise physiology geek mode.
The sciences, as John Taffer always likes to say.
People who use science that way don't know what science is.
I hope somebody out there...
Science is like a verb.
I just hope somebody out there likes bar rescue as much as me.
Yeah, if you're a Microcosm athlete that loves bar rescue, get in touch.
Give me a call. We will vibe. All right.
So what are you doing next year?
Goals.
What are your goals, and how did you go about setting your goals?
Well, I basically just chose all the races that you were going to do.
I love that.
I just wanted to do what you were going to do.
Just following me.
You're going to hold me accountable to excellence. I am. So
what's up first?
Well, we have the same 2A races.
We do.
We are both doing UTMB Chianti.
Yep.
Which is a 75-mile race.
It's 75?
Yes.
Fuck.
Or 73.
Okay. I know that's not that
100
different.
miles.
It's a long ass way.
It's 120K.
Yeah.
17,000 feet of climbing.
Oof.
Through the beautiful Tuscan Valley. Is it a valley?
It's hills.
Hills. Tuscan
Chianti
Hills.
The Chianti region.
Yes. It's apparently incredible.
It is. We're gonna ball the fuck out on food.
Yes, it's a good thing that I drink a lot of wine. I'm very excited.
Okay, you're gonna have to be flexible and at least try some Chianti while we're there.
I'm gonna try a lot of pasta.
You'll definitely be trying some pasta.
And pizza.
And risotto. There's good risotto in this region.
Okay, all right. So we're doing that. Mm-hmm. That's coming
in March.
Up in March. So
stay tuned for that journey.
Yeah, we're in the journey.
And
then I'm going to race the Silver Rush 50.
Oh, you are?
Again.
Oh, exciting. I didn't know this. I'm hearing this for the first time.
Oh, congratulations.
It's exciting for me.
This?
I mean, maybe you had told me and I've forgotten.
That's in early July.
Yep.
I'm gonna try to get that Leadville coin back.
You're going to go back to Leadville.
Yeah, unfinished business.
Love it.
And then we're both gonna do Run Rabbit.
Yeah.
Yep.
How do you feel about that?
I feel like it's a really good goal for me because I'm very nervous.
I've been wanting you to do this for a long time.
I'm very nervous about all of the running at night.
Dude, it rocks. You love being alone. Imagine how alone you can feel running in the dark on the Continental Divide at 2 a.m.
That's the kind of aloneness I'm not excited for, I feel like.
I loved it. I mean, when I was doing the race, I listened to a couple episodes of the Conan O'Brien podcast and just had a great time.
You're very special.
Very special.
I don't think I could do that. I'm excited and nervous about that race. I think it's a good step. I really want the Hard Rock qualifier.
And it's a double qualifier, I believe.
Yeah, it's a Western States as well, so I can keep putting in for that lottery.
Yep.
And then I think it's going to be a test of my competencies. It's not a sea-level race like Western States, so it's kind of at elevation, which was a challenge for me at Leadville with my fueling. It's also a little longer than 100 miles, so...
I think it's right at 100 now. It's not 106 anymore. No, not anymore.
Okay.
They've shortened it. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. It used to be that you would hit the final aid station at mile 99. But now it's it's about mile 95.
So yeah.
It's right around, it's 101, I think.
Good hills, 20,000 feet of climbing or something in that race.
Yep.
So that'll be good. I think, I haven't done a 100 miler that has climbing.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for that because I used to be very good at climbing.
Used to?
Yeah.
What happened?
I did a lot of faster hundreds, and I kind of got away from my strengths.
I mean, if you think about the ascent, Run Rabbit has a similar amount of gain compared to Western State. It's not like dramatically different. It's about 22,000 maybe.
I can't.
Western's like 17.
Descending's not my issue.
Right. But like the climbing. So
yeah,
I think it's a great race. I'm pumped that we get to do it together. I think that'll be a fun relationship challenge. There will probably be a lot of nights of Chinese carryout in preparation, because I have noticed in the past when we've peaked at similar times, the challenge is that we're both like, there'll just be 2 weeks where we're like always hungry and always tired. So that'll be the crux, I think.
No recipes.
No, we're not cooking anything from scratch. Everything is. We got to get that. I think we should reach out to our local Chinese restaurant Ming's for sponsorship.
I would give
or
them
Qdoba. Do you think Qdoba would sponsor us?
A lunch and dinner served daily at our house for the 2 peak weeks of this would be a real indulgence.
Yeah, Qdoba executives.
Don't think we could afford it, but
in the audience.
I love to dream.
Yeah.
I'm excited for these races. Run Rabbit, it'll be interesting. I mean, we kind of have raced the same race before.
We have.
When we did the UTMB Argentina race, we were both racing at the same time. We're both going to be racing at the same time at Chianti.
Yep.
And then at Rabbit. I don't know. I kind of like knowing that you're out there. And I kind of like thinking about how you're doing.
Yeah.
And like using that as... like
fuel. Like if I catch you, that's bad.
Yeah, but you just never know, especially like, in a 100-mile race.
Right.
Well, you could potentially catch me if I'm having a bad day.
I hope you don't, because I was planning on us competing in the team division as well. Yeah. And if I'm catching you, either A, I'm breaking the female course record, which amazing, unlikely, but whatever. I would like for both of us to do well so we can get that money. Which is why I do this. It's what it's all about at the end of the day. For the wads and wads of cash bestowed upon us semi-professional ultra runners.
The 50s of dollars.
The dozens of dollars a year. Just enough to get taxed on.
We're going to get to do Steamboat Boot Camp, which is really exciting.
Hashtag boat camp.
Boat camp.
We have a lot of Microcosm athletes doing Run Rabbit as well. So
I've
always loved competing with our team.
I've coached probably 8 to 10 athletes in my career so far for Rabbit, and I've been out there like 3 times for the race, and I'm excited to kind of know the experience for myself firsthand. I think it'll help with my coaching a lot too. For sure.
I think it's a great race for your skill set. I'm pumped to go back because I loved that race. I feel like when I trained for it last time, it facilitate the thing we always talk about of goals should set you up to live the kind of life you want to live.
Yeah.
It was right after I had written and released my book and was just so burnt out and exhausted about the book and about my other job at Outside Magazine that I was really struggling and was just totally overwhelmed. So I sort of disconnected a bit from life in Carbondale and went to Steamboat for 10 days to just kind of get my head screwed on straight and just no extraneous anything. Just go and train and work and eat and sleep. And I always like to develop a little film curriculum for myself when I'm training for races, to watch fun movies that have themes that I'm interested in meditating on. And I had a really transformative experience just hanging out by myself in Steamboat, re-regulating my nervous system, figuring out who Zoe was without feeling like Zoe was a book or Zoe was an editor outside, and just being Zoe in a bit of I needed to do it in a vacuum to figure out who I was again. So I'm excited to see what lessons the course and the training process can teach me again this year.
What are you going to focus on from a training perspective now that you've done the race? You've done quite well there already. What would you recommend that I focus on to prepare?
Learning how to shuffle up not very steep sustained climbs when you are tired.
What kind of grade are we talking about here?
Kind of Prince Creek grade, 5-6% maybe.
Ooh, the douche grade.
Getting going up douche grade even when you're I could hike this, and you need to not
you
hike
need to be
it.
Making that choice.
You need to make the choice to not hike. There's also a section, the only section I didn't preview when I was scouting the course was like the section right after like about mile 75. And I was like, oh, it looks fine on the map. It'll be totally fine. And when I actually got there, like in the middle of the night, I was like, oh my God, this is the most fucked up part of the course.
Technical?
Very technical. Unlike any other part of the course, non-representative of any other of the parts I had seen. Now that I know that that's there, I definitely want to run through that section in the daytime because I felt like I was very inefficient there in the night. I kept getting my poles out and it was dark and it was route findy. I did manage to pass a woman at that point. But I think where I left the most like potential on the table is like the climb up Emerald Mountain kind of right after mile 50 and then up Spring Creek after like mile 62-ish. So I know those are like small things. Doing that and then running better on the divide in the morning. I was pretty cold, so I was not running as fast as I hope to in the future.
I'm hoping that this race, you know, the experience of running through the night and into the cold morning and all of that, like, sets me up for maybe doing UTMB or something. One of these races where, like, it's going to take 24 hours probably. Like, on a really good day, it's probably going to take me 24 hours. You're going to have to run through a long night with a lot of climbing and screwed up terrain and, like, you know, kind of work on those competencies.
Yeah.
Thin slice that stuff. Like, you don't want, like, your first experience running through the night to probably be at UTMB.
Probably not.
Probably want that to happen like at a race that's like one level below that.
Yeah.
In order to do your best at the big show.
Exactly. And, you know, I think another big consideration for us is we're getting married in June. Yay.
Oh,
congrats to us.
I forgot about that. I was going to mention that. Because that's our third race of the year.
That's our third race.
that we're doing
Honestly,
together.
Jesus fucking Christ. It is way easier to run 100 miles than plan a wedding, is what I'm learning.
It's only taken 2 years.
It's taken 2 years. Like, the amount, I mean, my spreadsheets for 100-mile races are very detailed, and I just do not have that same level of connection, with all due respect to us and our relationship to the wedding. So, I need a crew captain for the wedding. We need a crew captain.
Calling all crew chiefs.
Calling all crew chiefs. But that is something that we had to sort of consider in terms of like building our race schedule. And I only bring that up to like demonstrate to people that races should fit into the context of your life.
Yeah. Are you doing a race in June?
Fuck no.
Yeah, me either.
Because I thought we were going to do a honeymoon.
Sure.
Ideally.
Hope so.
Yeah. Holding out hope.
That'd be nice.
Yep. So that's my June goal. Get betrothed and then I guess bewedded. Get bewedded. And then hopefully go do a honeymoon with a good bit of running.
With some running.
Good bit of running.
Never not training.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Running is fun. I want to go run fun things in fun places and eat fun food.
Yeah.
# that's my honeymoon.
It's kind of how we spend our time.
It's how we spend our time. So that's 2025 in a nutshell.
Let's do it.
And then
we're on our way.
We're doing it. We're here. We are 7 days in, 1 weekend.
7 days in. Big training weeks already under the belt. Weeks.
Yeah. You just did, I think we both just did our biggest training weeks ever.
Yeah.
You did 110 miles?
Almost.
I did 105.
You did 105?
Or not 105. I'm so tired. I don't know where I am. 95.
95.
It's a little different.
It's a lot, though. I mean...
TJ, you're like,
Whoa.
Jeez. Wow.
I didn't realize that.
Great job.
Yeah. Taking a down week this week?
Taking a down week. I don't think I am taking a down week. I think I'm just keeping on. But I feel good. I feel healthy. I'm doing my strength training, eating a bunch, sleeping a bunch, saying no to things that don't serve me, hydrated, thriving in my lane, as the kids say.
I feel like that's a good segue into what we wanted to talk about outside of ourselves, which...
Yes.
I guess the people like hearing about, but I always feel weird about, the fundamentals.
If you look at the analytics from our podcast, the thing people enjoy hearing about most is us. And the thing that we enjoy talking about least is us. So there's a fundamental mismatch there that we'll have to reconcile, ideally off the air.
Maybe that's the magic.
the magic is that like people are like, I just want to know what these two randos,
they're awkward.
what they're, yeah. We did have one listener, not an athlete, just like a rando that was like, you guys have no chemistry and it's so uncomfortable when you fight on the air.
Because we really fight.
Well, we have spirited discussion. Well, this is my love language. Spirited discussion.
As a former high school debater.
Dynamic dialogue.
Yes. All right, let's get into the
It's
fundamentals.
a meeting of the minds, yes.
Let's meet the minds in the area of the fundamentals.
And this is stuff that, I guess, if you're someone who does tune in to hear our spicy debate, there will not be a lot of it here because we and every other serious coach, athlete, human are pretty in agreement on what the fundamentals are to get better.
Why are we talking about this?
We're talking about this because I think that it's the number one thing that I talk about with athletes, that I think about, that I think athletes struggle with, is that people always get distracted with bright, shiny objects and they lose focus on the things that matter most.
Especially like going into starting a new year, people are thinking, what can I add on? And when they think about like, what can I add on? Yeah. They're kind of thinking about like, what silver bullet can I reach for? What hack can I grab out of like this bag of hacks that's going to help me get to where I want to be by the time 2026 rolls around in a year from now. And the fact of the matter is like that stuff doesn't really work. And we need to point our focus to kind of the big, I call it the big percentages, the stuff that actually plays out year after year that creates results. So instead of thinking about the hacks, let's refocus on what the fundamentals are, what those big percentages are, and then, have a little self-evaluation. Where am I at with these things? What can I improve on this year?
Yeah, I mean, like, if I had a dime for every time an athlete sent me a link to, like, sodium bicarbonate and was like, what do I think? And I was like, well, if you were executing your workouts perfectly, nailing your sleep, nailing your nutrition, nailing your stress management, nailing your recovery, then let's have a robust discussion about whether or not taking in sodium bicarbonate before some specific workouts or events might extend or improve your body's ability to buffer blood lactate. But until you're doing absolutely all of those things incredibly perfectly, do we need to be spending $65 on fancy soup? No, we do not.
All right. Point number 1, consistency.
This is the biggest one.
I think this is the most important one from a pure boots on the ground, running perspective, process perspective. This is what we do on a day-to-day basis that has the most powerful effect when you add it up over the course of a year.
Yeah, so consistency compounds, right? Like you've run a 4,000 mile year. I ran 3,700 miles. I didn't go from 1,000 miles to almost 4,000. For me, it took 7 years to get to that point. Yeah. To the point where I can do doubles twice a week, where I can do 4-hour long runs on the weekends. And so I think a lot of athletes are like, I want to be high volume and I want to be high volume now. And no, it really, like, consistency is a way of being that takes years and years and years to get to that point. And it's always achieved in the little things. Like, the only reason I am that person that can go out and do a 4-hour long run and feel fine afterwards is because there were lots of days where all I had was 20 minutes, and that's what I did.
Yeah, it's true. So, like, from a broad strokes perspective, what we would define as consistency is 4 to 6 days of running per week. Yeah. And this is going to depend a little bit on experience and goals, whether you're on that 4-day or 6-day side of things. And like, I really like to look at it as like even 10 or 20 minutes counts. Like if you're a time limited athlete, remember that 10 or 20 minutes when repeated daily over the course of a year adds up to a lot of hours run, a lot of miles run, and helps to improve your aerobic fitness, which is super important, whether you're running a marathon, a 10K, a 5K, or a 100-miler. Like, that matters.
It does. I mean, particularly when you think of, like, a big mistake that I think athletes make is they're like, oh, I'm just, I don't have the time. I can't get out and do my 20 minutes, so I won't do anything at all. And you're missing a vital opportunity to improve your body's ability to take on load and to recover, right? Like if you're not repeatedly stressing your bone and soft tissue, it's not going to learn how to recover. It's not going to learn how to adapt. And so again, this is in the context of like, you have bandwidth, ability, and health to do so. Don't don't run if that's not beneficial or productive or you're like way too stressed. But if it is just from like a time standpoint, like it is always worth it to get out for those 10, 15, 20 minutes.
Right.
And if you're ever on the fence of like, oh, I don't know, I feel a little tired, like I don't know if this would be productive, try it for 10 minutes. And if at the end of the 10 minutes you're like, no, I'm pretty tired, I'm really not feeling it, give yourself permission to take it home. Yep. But if you feel good, give yourself permission to extend that run.
And I would say maybe last point on the consistency front, if you're trying to improve on your consistency in 2025, every Sunday night, take out your planner and look at your week and schedule your runs out for the whole week into your planner. Yeah. Even if you only have 10 minutes, schedule it into your planner.
Yep.
Folks who do this are much more likely to get out and get the run done rather than just trying to piece it together based on how a day goes. It's too easy to just like continue to put it off until it's 7 o'clock at night and now it's time for dinner and you didn't do your run.
Yeah, exactly.
So plan ahead and pencil in your runs like you would a work meeting or anything else in your life.
Yep. Exactly. And, missing a day isn't the end of the world, but really work on stringing together multiple weeks of consistent running. Growth comes from stacking weeks, not relying on individual heroic efforts. I don't care if you could go out and run 6 hours tomorrow. 6 hours in isolation is only going to be a non-productive stress. So show me what you can do for years, not for a couple weeks.
All right. Talking about non-productive stress and 6 hour runs. Let's get into fundamental number 2, volume.
Yeah, volume. This is something that I think that, again, working with a coach can really help I always work on frequency before like intensity and before length first. Like if you can get your ideally getting your bouts of running during the week up to 4, 5, 6, that's really ideal because you're spreading out that stress concentration. Once you've mastered that, that's when it's really going to be ideal to start thinking about increasing that volume. And I think one of the big things to look at is building that long run volume. So that's usually I like to sort of have a long run that's about 1.5 times the length of your baseline run, or that accounts for between 15 to 25% of your total weekly volume, depending on your background, goals, and overall volume.
Yep. I think that's a good rule to think about. And I would also consider just being careful about how you're progressing through these, especially if you're earlier on in the process.
Yes.
Make sure that, you're really listening to your body. If you do 2 or 3 weeks in a row where you're feeling really good, you're increasing that long run volume or the amount of days that you're running, you might want to take a precaution and do every 4th week up as a kind of like a deload week.
Yeah, a deload or a down week.
Down week. Just to give your bones, muscles, ligaments, tendons time to catch up to where your aerobic system is. As we talked a lot about on past podcasts, your musculoskeletal system is going to be the slowest system to realize adaptations in this process. So you'll get fit very quickly, but it takes the body a while to catch up.
Yep. Yeah. If you break your bones, it doesn't matter how good your aerobic system is. So take care of your hard and soft tissue. So once you've mastered frequency, you've started to build volume. Another thing that you want to think about is intensity. And the big thing here is really making sure that 80% of your total volume is easy. Very, very easy. Conversational piece, RPE of 4 to 5 to 6, depending. I really, when I have more intermediate advanced athletes, I really work on differentiating between that endurance run intensity and that recovery run intensity. And that endurance run is usually 5 to 6 out of 10 RPE, and recovery is 4 to 5 out of 10 RPE, but honestly, closer to 4 is better. There is no prize for going as hard as you can while still going easy. Yeah. There's diminishing returns the harder you go on a recovery day. So go easier, because really the only goal there is to increase circulation, keep blood volume up, and to minimize impact. So if you're pushing or trying to push or think that you're smart or cool or good for pushing the pace on your recovery days, you're just kneecapping yourself. Don't do that. There's no prize for that. Yeah. It's not helpful.
I think
you do not understand the assignment.
I honestly think 80% is probably on the low end for
that's an advanced athlete, and probably not a high volume athlete.
Right.
A like maybe a marathoner would be doing like right at that. Again, like any
Depends
percentage that you hear about on a podcast, like 10% rule, really not a thing. 80-20, a vibe. Like you're not going to exceed 20% of intensity. 20% is like the maximum amount of intensity. 20% of your total volume above aerobic threshold max, at or above aerobic threshold max.
Right. Like I'm just thinking about last week's training. I did 13 and a half hours.
Yeah.
1 hour total of that was actually the intensity.
I did 13 and a half hours also, and then I did an hour and 20 minutes of intensity.
So you did 2 40-minute
threshold workouts.
That's not very much.
No.
Compared to how how much of that was easy running.
Correct.
So 12 hours of that was easy running for you, basically. So obviously, your easy running percentage was much higher than 80%.
Correct. So, and like my big intention lately has been really making sure my recovery, after seeing how slow you did all of your recovery runs and then crushing your 50K, I've been really trying to race you to, even though you don't know it, I'm racing you to see who can go slowest on their recovery days.
Good luck, anybody out there who thinks they can go slower than me on a
Bowie
recovery
and I
day.
have been crushing 9:30 pace.
There you go.
Yeah.
That seems
just
really
absolute
good for you.
zone 1 queens out here.
Love that.
Not Bowie. Wait, who am I? Which one's the dog?
Bowie's zone 5.
That's Bowie's zone 5. She is she's aerobically not gifted, unfortunately, for a 4-year-old Australian Shepherd. Bless her heart. We're getting there. Consistency.
So I guess maybe a little takeaway from this is like we often think like running easy is like a sign of weakness or lazy. I don't know.
Or that again, it's beneficial to push within that.
Run harder.
Yeah.
But that doesn't create the benefits that you want.
And I think the big trap I see athletes getting into is they're like, I'm trying to go a little bit faster on my easy days, and that's not where the gains are made. Like, I don't care if your endurance days are a little bit slower. The gains are from making your intervals and your workouts higher quality. I don't give a fuck what your easy days, like, I don't need you to go like, oh, like technically Training Peak says I can go all the way to 8:30 pace while still being in zone 2. Great. Run slower than that. That's fine. It's not going to benefit you any to push the pace on your easy days. Push the pace on your workout days, and then reverse engineer the rest of your week to support that intention.
Right. That's where the most gains are going to happen.
Correct.
Like the easy running, because the spectrum is so large, you get those gains kind of as long as you're going zone 2 and below.
Yeah, and the worst thing you can do for your training is inadvertently push too frequently into that steady state zone. That's not a zone we spend a ton of time in. It's not often productive for athletes.
Yeah. If you're one of those athletes who thinks or is confused and think to get faster, you've got to run harder.
Run harder for a couple minutes a week.
That's not the predominant issue. The predominant issue is that people think it's the reverse situation.
Right.
80% of your running should be hard.
Right. Or
20%
because I
easy.
technically could run a little bit harder this day, I should. Actually, the benefit will come from you not doing that. And again, having the discipline to reflect the true intention of polarized training day in and day out. Having the discipline to go slow enough, and having the discipline to not let your ego or your Strava, whatever, impact what pace you run your easy days at.
All right. How about number 4, number 5? I lost count, but nutrition. Another really big fundamental. Key takeaways.
Eat enough.
Eat enough, always.
Eat enough. You cannot out-train relative energy deficiency. If you are not eating enough, you are not going to be able to adapt to your training. It's just that simple. That's like one of the number one mistakes I see an athlete make. And I would just say, like, to any of my athletes listening, if there's ever a concern that you're not meeting your energy needs, communicate with your coach. Let us know so we can dial back the training, because you cannot continue to take on load. You will not be able to get away with it. You will get sick. You will get injured. Worst case scenario. Best case scenario, you just fail to adapt and you stagnate. And that's not a great outcome either. So making sure that you are meeting your energy needs, making sure you're getting enough protein, making sure you're getting enough carbohydrates, not falling prey to any dumb like fad diets or stuff that you see influencers doing. For the love of God, you don't need sodium bicarbonate. You don't need to get obsessed with like getting a collagen supplement in unless you are absolutely nailing the fundamentals of your daily nutrition. And I can't recommend enough for anyone who's concerned, reaching out towards a professional like like Kylie, again, like as someone who, you know, is a journalist that specializes in reporting on endurance sports nutrition, this is like one of the most important things that I often see athletes feel really confused about, overlook, and end up like overthinking in a way that's counterproductive.
Totally. Before a run, always get a small snack in, whether...
Don't run fasted. Yeah, don't do that.
Please
Fuck
don't.
that.
Get a snack in. Make sure you eat breakfast before your runs. 300 to 500 calories before these runs, if not more, if it's a long run. What is going to work for you is going to be based on kind of who you are as an individual. But
right.
I think it's fair to say that simpler carbs are better before training, less GI distress, more available carbohydrate, glucose in the bloodstream, all of that you need to feel good out there and to run fast, running economy. Something that that efficiency kind of factor out there is going to be related to how many carbs you have on board.
Yeah, and aerobic base training, like one of the benefits of running truly easy, running at that recovery effort, is it does improve your body's ability to oxidize fat. So if you're someone who wants to improve your ability to oxidize fat, if you heard our carbohydrate or our nutrition periodization episode a couple weeks ago, you know that manipulating carbohydrate intake isn't an effective way of changing your body's ability to utilize fat as an energy source. The best way to do that is to do aerobic base training.
Totally, 100%.
So stop fucking with your diet, eat enough carbs, do enough training. Whenever you're running, I would say 80 plus minutes, definitely at 90, especially if there's any intensity. Make sure that you're taking in fuel as well. 60 to 90 grams of carbohydrate an hour. I know there's a lot of talk in the world about super high carb fueling right now. Some people will feel good doing that, and it can be fun to experiment with that, but it's not by any means like the holy grail for every single person. We're all individuals, and it's really important that you contextualize a fueling plan based on your background, your goals, what you're able to do, and make sure that you are right now, if you're thinking of doing races in 2025, start building your fueling training plan yesterday. Start practicing it now. The wrong time to start practicing your race training plan is a month before the event. You need to be dialing that shit in weeks and weeks and weeks ahead of race day. How long have you been practicing your race day training or your race day nutrition for? How long? Because I know you've had a stomach thing for a bit, but before you did the Spartan 50 miler, how many weeks ahead of time did you start practicing your race day fueling strategy?
I've been continually practicing my race day strategy.
Every single long run?
For 8 years.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And
that's the program.
And it's been working.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't look the same as it did.
Right. It's evolved.
Because, products have evolved. Like, knowledge has changed. But I have practiced my fueling on every single run over 90 minutes for eternity, basically, forever. Because that's what it takes. Mm-hmm. You don't want to leave any of this to chance. And that really includes also like what I do post run too.
Right.
So making sure that I start to refuel 30 to 60 minutes after session. So like if I'm down on the treadmill, a 25-minute drive away, I have a protein shake with me for after the session. If I'm driving out to the desert and it's, we're not going to have access to food for a half an hour after our long runs, I have a protein shake with me in the car for right after, just to make sure that like
thinking ahead, planning ahead.
You have to because your recovery depends on it.
Yeah.
And if you short yourself on that
then
stuff,
why do the training?
Right. And
why? What's the point?
It does have long-term downstream side effects that aren't positive for athletes. So if you're thinking about like, what should I get on a ketone plan or sodium bicarb? It's like, well, are you actually like getting in protein?
If you're
after
nailing
your
the
runs?
fundamentals, then we can start to think about that. But
Right.
up and until that point, discard all of this like hacky, anything that you can buy. Don't think about buying things until you're nailing all the stuff that's complicated but free.
And I feel like this is a good segue into our last point here on the big percentages, which is recovery.
Yep. Yeah, I think so often like you cannot out-train bad recovery. There's nothing you can do in the training that can surpass what you're doing outside of the work. So always make sure that you're working on sleep, stress management, remembering that the body recognizes stress not miles. I know we all like to think we can compartmentalize. Like, I am the most susceptible to that fantasy. Like, I totally get it. But it is unfortunately not how our bodies experience the world. It is not how our bodies experience training. So work on your ability to manage stress. And when there are things outside of the training that you can't necessarily like switch off work stress, you can't switch off, like if you just had a baby, you can't, flip that switch.
No.
So flip the training switch and make sure that you're really focused on your recovery. You don't need to buy some fancy pill or massage gun or anything like that. Nail the fundamentals before you think about, succumbing to these hacks like cold showers, cold plunges, fancy breathing routines. Take care of yourself, get enough sleep, get enough food.
Yeah, and just like stick to some of the fundamental rules within this. Like, are you sleeping 7 to 9 hours a night? Are you eating balanced meals?
Yep.
Are you eating meals that are most of the time whole food based?
High quality, nutritionally dense foods.
Exactly. Like, are you strength training once or twice a week and hitting like the functional movements that are necessary to remain healthy and make some gains that support your running and your goals? Are you taking a rest day every week? And is it an actual rest day?
Yes. Stop doing 3-hour walks on your rest day.
And
it's
then,
not a rest day.
Yeah. And then like,
don't get on the Peloton on your rest day.
I think, within this, it's important to just kind of like look at the stories, the narratives that you have around some of these things, because sometimes those are the points of friction that prevent us from actually getting to like the actual gains that we can have from these kind of big percentage in our training.
Yep.
Like, oh, I don't need to rest fully on my rest day. Like, blah, 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 blah. Like, that's the only time I can do strength. Like, does that support what you want?
Yeah.
And I think, like, ultimately, when we're looking at a new year, always ask yourself, like, are the things I'm doing today going to support what I want to create in the future?
Focus on the fundamentals before you worry about the bright new shiny objects, the silver bullets, and the hacks.
All right, guys. Thanks so much. Microcosm Coaching at gmail.com, microcosm-coaching.com. We'd love to hear from you guys. See you next week.